Hello there and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevičius. Welcome to Secrets of Organ Playing podcast number 80. Today is Sunday, February the 5th, 2017, and today's guest is Thomas Leslie from Canada. Thomas is a graduate of Wilfrid, Laurer and McGill universities, where he studied both voice and organ. He recently completed an executive MBA program at the Université Paris-Dauphine, one of France's most prestigious research and higher education institutions. He is the executive director of the Canadian International Organ Competition, a member of the board of directors of Casavant Frères, and holds a Colleague Diploma from the Royal Canadian College of Organists. Thomas also has a beautiful tenor voice and sings regularly throughout Canada and the United States. His recent performance highlights include Handel's Messiah and the Magic Flute with the Orchestre symphonique de Longueuil, Handel's Dixit Dominus, Mozart Credomesse, and Haydn's Lord Nelson Mass with the Lambert Choral Society, Mendelssohn's Elijah with the Berkshire Choral Festival, music of Nico Muhly at the River to River Festival in New York City, jazz Bach's Cantata Ein Feste Burg ist unser Gott in Kitchener, Ontario, and Mozart's Requiem with the Orchestre Symphonique de l'Estuaire. Other operatic performances include Benjamin Britten's A Midsummer Night's Dream, Harry Sommer's Louis Riel, Strauss's Die Fledermaus, and Bernstein's Candida. Thomas has been heard as a panelist on CBC Radio's Opera Quiz and was featured on the Bravo Network documentary series, The Classical Now. In today's conversation, Thomas talks about the Canadian International Organ Competition and Festival. So this prestigious international organ competition is an organization devoted to the promotion of organ music in Quebec and Canada through discovery activities for the general public, concerts, and an annual festival in Montreal in October. Its competition, directed by the eminent Canadian organist John Grew, every 3 years ranks among the most prestigious competitions in the world, with prizes totaling over $100,000. Past winners are David Baskefield from UK in 2014, Christian Lane from the United States in 2011, and Frédéric Champion from France in 2008. So let's go to the show and let's find out about one of the most spectacular organ events in the world. Thank you so much, Thomas, for joining in this conversation, and people around the world from 89 countries will be delighted to know more about this fantastic Canadian International Organ Competition that you're leading. I'm very grateful for your time and generosity of sharing ideas with our community. So thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
At the beginning of our conversation, we had a few technical difficulties because I was talking on the phone. My connection wasn't stable and it kept getting disconnected. But nevertheless, I then transferred to my laptop and finally it all worked out okay. So at the part where I was talking with Thomas on the phone, he was telling a story of how he first fell in love with the organ, basically, when he was in his youth, and at first he was a singer. So let's continue listening to Thomas' story now. You were saying that you were a singer,
yes.
and you are fascinated by the complexity of this instrument, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Have you ever tried to really look into the complexity, of this instrument from the, let's say, engineering point of view, like an organ builder?
Yeah, because actually, one of the churches that where I was the organist, we put in a pipe organ to replace an electronic organ that they had. So I got to see all of the dismantling of the organ at its previous home and refurbishment and the installation in the new church.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I had I got to see it all dismantled and see the various components and how they fit together and how it all works.
Right. Of course, when we're talking about this instrument, big instrument, there are so many moving parts, and it's not only engineering, but also in artistic point of view, it's very complex instrument. So, at which point of your life, Thomas, did you understand that you want to connect people, connect organists, and to organize organ concerts and festivals like that?
I've been working at the Canadian International Organ Competition for 4.5 years now. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was working actually at McGill University, not doing anything to do with music, mm-hmm. Although still singing as a singer. And the opportunity to come and join the competition came, and it seemed like an interesting venture and a great little artistic organization that we had in Montreal. And so I was fortunate enough to be selected to take over as the executive director, and I've been doing it now for 4.5 years.
Yeah, this is a very, let's say, it's a dream sometimes for an organist to be able to connect so many, let's say, mm-hmm. stars from the organ world, right? To come together to a city like Montreal and to play for organ music lovers, right? And I think you're right. It's a real dream, and sometimes it's a privilege. And Thomas, what fascinates you about those making those connections? Is it always an easy thing to communicate with people from around the world, or sometimes you feel like a challenge which you have to overcome?
Well, I mean, I think primarily our biggest focus is actually on young organists, the next generation of stars. And that's the whole purpose of the competition, is to identify them, bring them together, let them make their own connections, and then support them after the fact and give them performing opportunities. And that's very satisfying. And I know, as a musician myself, that the connections you make when you're just young and starting out and studying, or doing competitions, or doing festivals, or whatever, those are friends and acquaintances that you're going to keep for all of your life.
Yes.
And so it's very satisfying to see people come and develop those connections, and then you know that they'll go on and perform together and look out for each other and work together throughout all of their professional lives.
I could not agree more that it's a very worthwhile work you're doing, because young organists sometimes have a real trouble to rise above the competition, and the competition mm-hmm. Like this is a great starting point. Maybe not starting point because it's so prestigious, of course, but I don't know, for virtuoso young organists, it's a real career boost, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I think it's we try to structure it in such a way that, well, of course, everyone is competing against each other, and there can only be one first prize winner. We do our best to to create the right kind of atmosphere that people feel like the pressure is not too much, and that the 2 weeks that they spend here in Montreal for the live competitions, it's almost like a 2-week professional development course where, regardless of whether they win the first prize or don't win any prize, when they leave here, they'll leave as stronger musicians than when they came.
Definitely. Just to compete, just to even prepare this amazing and grand program, right? For this competition is a remarkable feat for many people. Not too many people even, are able to prepare that kind of length, right?
Yeah.
Lengthy program. But if you do the preparation right, a year in advance, and you are working hard, and you have great education in advance, then this process in itself is so rewarding, regardless whether this person wins or not.
Exactly. And often people come back, as long as they're still eligible, they will come back and compete more than one time. And the people who come back for a second time, they're usually much stronger competitors, because they know exactly how things work, and they know how to plan their programs and how to prepare. Because with the 3 live rounds, it's over 2 hours of music, which is a lot of repertoire. And what can often happen is, they concentrate very hard on our first round, which is Bach and Buxtehude, to make sure they get in to the second round. And then the second round is usually pretty good too. But sometimes people can be a little underprepared for their last round, because they were concentrating on earlier, where the people who perform the best actually do it in reverse, and they get their final program is solid, and then they work their way backward from there.
In this case, of course, there is a risk not to get into the second round, right? If you are a little bit sloppy, right, at the first round. And when I say sloppy, I don't mean you are playing with lots of mistakes. No, just a few slips is enough at this level, right? World class level competition not to be able to go on right to the second round. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's we understand that the jury does its best to recognize the fact that it's an artificial environment, and that the nervous pressure is higher there than it would be in any other circumstance. So for even at the very beginning, the jury is looking for musicality, and looking for people who are really communicating with their audience. And that's why for all 3 of the live rounds we have live video of the organist playing for the public, and we invest a lot of resources into promoting the competition rounds and our festival to the general public, to make sure that we typically have around 1,000 people in the church for a round of the competition. And I think in a way, even though you might think that would increase the pressure on the competitors, but in a way I think it decreases it, because when they look out and they see all those people, they can think, okay, well, I'm not really doing a competition, I'm just playing a concert. And then they go and play the concert and play for the audience, because I think it's much, much easier to play for an audience than it is to play for a jury, or even to play for your fellow competitors.
Yeah, the best performance usually happens when you forget who is listening, who is even judging you, right? And the fact that you have only one chance, if you can forget this, if you can if you can be in a mental state where you can be, relaxed and as easygoing, of course, focused enough not to be able to sleep, but enough with, play with joy for the sake of joy of music, basically. Then perhaps the best performances might happen, I think, too.
Exactly.
And Thomas, do you think about competition like this as a form of art or sport? You know what I mean, probably. When people competing, it's like in athletics, right? One has to win, or several people have to win, but a few people will have to lose, right? Whereas in art, everybody wins in some way, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely more art than sport, because I think that even regardless of whether people win a prize or not, they've made music for people, and even if they didn't convince the judge that they were the best, there is probably somebody in the audience who thought they were the best, and for that person, it was a satisfying artistic experience.
I think the best way to express this idea of art, but also of competition with yourself. You're competing against yourself, basically. You're at which level you were yesterday and at which level you are today. So we strive to be better, right, every day. I think that's the mental state which frees the mind or the person from unnecessary tension. When you compare each other, colleagues who are competing, sometimes they're nervous, sometimes they're envious. But if you look at yourself as a competitor against yourself, then it's a little bit different, don't you think?
Yeah. But I think, like I say, it's definitely more artistic than athletic. Do
you have anonymous around where the judges cannot see the faces of the competitors?
Yeah, the preliminary round, which will be taking place at the end of March, is a blind round made on audio recording. And then there'll be typically about 60 applicants for that, between 50 and 60. And then from that pool of 50 to 60, we reduce it to 16 competitors and maybe 3 or 4 alternates that can come and compete in the live round.
Yes, and when the competitors send the audio recording, there is no really way to know who is playing, right?
Exactly.
Only the secretary probably knows.
Right. I know, but I don't vote.
Right. So then the objectivity, right, of the judges are intact, and integrity of the competition will be very, very high at this level. Because in some parts of the world, like in my country, for example, Lithuania, they are not yet ready to do the blind audition, and sometimes it's the subjectivity of the judges gets in the way. Sometimes the students or friends of the students, friends of the colleagues, are competing, and those political decisions gets in the way. So I'm glad that Canada is well ahead of that, of subjectivity. Great. So how do you select the repertoire for the, let's say, first, second, and the final rounds?
That's under the domain of our artistic director, John Grew, who's the former dean and former organ professor at McGill University here. We try to, but our basic premise is to give as much choice to the competitors to build their own program, which is both a gift and a curse in a way, because it's a lot of responsibility to build a program, and that the judges judge not only the playing but the thought that went into the program, and the fact that they've created a balanced program that engages the audience. Whereas if everything was assigned, then they wouldn't have to think about that. They would just play what they were told to play. But even in the first round, which is Bach and Buxtehude, there are four different blocks, like an ornamented chorale, a prelude and fugue, Buxtehude work, and then I forget what the fourth one is. But then within each of those categories, there are several choices that each competitor can make on their own, and then from there going on, it just gets freer and freer in terms of the repertoire requirements.
What would you think about the strange idea? I'm going to say it. If everybody would play the same thing on the first round, on the second, a different program, but everybody would be competing against everybody with the same repertoire. Would that be, I don't know, artistically pleasing?
Well, certainly not for the audience, right? We have to, in the last competition, in 2014, we had 10,000 spectators throughout the 2 weeks, and all of those thousands of people are not going to want to sit and listen to the same Bach piece 16 times, and even the jury, I think would have a hard time listening over and over again to the same piece.
Exactly. I was waiting for this kind of answer. And another idea is when the person doesn't have to choose, right, and think subjectively about the programming, right, then we eliminate this kind of responsibility of an artist, basically, right, to be able to choose wisely the repertoire which works together. And then if as you're saying, if they're only playing as things that they're told to play, it's not enough today. Yes. In this kind of world which is constantly changing, exploring new boundaries, technologies, mixing with creativity, and the organ world is never the same, right? Every year is something new. So you are right about having the need to explore the maturity of an artist, right? Even though it's a young person, but he or she has to be well-rounded, right? With choices, with performance, with creativity, with expression, and communication, probably.
Exactly.
So Thomas, what kind of instrument is available for the Baroque round?
Well, I mean, Montreal is a rich city for organs. There are over 300 organs on the island of Montreal. Not all of them are of the highest quality for the competition, but we have lots of good instruments. And the organ that we use for the preliminary round, the first round, the Baroque round, is a von Beckerath organ that was built in I think 1960 at the l'Église du Immaculée Conception, and it's a nice, well balanced 3-manual mechanical action organ that works very, very well in the acoustic.
Do you have Baroque pieces in the second or the final round also?
Technically, it's possible because people have, but people do. Well, that's not true. Some people do play some Bach on a more romantic instrument in a more romantic style, and or they will choose sort of romantic transcriptions of Bach, the Bach Dupré cantata transcription, or things like that. So I guess it would depend on whether you consider that to be Baroque music or not. But if they do, then they just have to make sure they choose a piece that they can make work on an instrument that's a more romantic instrument, which may not be as easy because they have only a limited amount of time on the instruments. But even before that, they have to actually choose their repertoire before ever playing these instruments. They can look at the stop list, they can maybe listen to some YouTube recordings from previous rounds, but they can't sit in the space and they can't get acquainted with the instruments before they have to make their repertoire choices.
Yes, you're right. That a person has to be with a good education and good sense of taste, right? What would work on this kind of instrument, even from looking at the desired specification. You can see some things which might not work, which might work. For example, if a person is planning to play some Choral Fantasia by Matthias Weckmann from North Germany, and it would require some 16-foot trumpet on the grate. It has to be there, right? This kind of
exactly.
stuff. Yes, that's what I mean. And Thomas, how much time do they get on the target instrument to practice?
I know that we make sure they get at least 3 hours per, but it's closer to 5. I think we give them as much practice time as possible, but we have to make sure that it's equitable and that everyone gets the exact same amount of time.
Is it true, Thomas, that the best performances or even the best organists are those people who do the homework first, at home, study the specification list, do the preparation about the registration changes well in advance, and don't waste their time at the instrument itself?
Yeah, and I think that's another reason why the people who come back maybe for a second time do a better job, because they know they get to know the instruments more, they get to know the structure of the competition more, they get to know the acoustics, and so actually, obviously, in the very first competition, it wasn't a return person who won because there were no return people, but subsequently in 2011 and in 2014, the winners had competed in previous competitions.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the prizes must be a very tempting thing for them. Not only artistically they want to compete and be able to create their own careers because of that, but also some kind of rewards, financial rewards, or even recording deals. Or concert engagements, right? Management engagements are very, very tempting for young people. Do you have those in place for artists?
Yeah, I think we probably are the most generous competition in the world. We have our total prize package of all of the prizes that are offered is worth over $120,000 Canadian.
Yes.
And the first prize alone is $25,000, and then the last person, the 2014 winner, won the first prize and 3 other prizes: the audience prize and the the prize for the best interpretation of Canadian work, and I forget what the third prize was. But anyways, he left with having won $40,000 in prize money, which is basically a year's salary.
Yes.
And then on top of that, he also had a recording engagement through us, which would have been worth $20,000 if he were to pay for everything on his own, and probably another $25,000 or $30,000 worth of concert engagements over the last 3 years. So I think the people who are fortunate enough to win the competition here get really a lot of professional support and remuneration and performance opportunities.
Just think what you could do with $25,000 or $40,000, as in this case. One could buy an instrument, right, for practice at home. One could invest in other competitions, right? Prepare to create, and one could after that one could hire a professional marketing agency, right, or something like that. Career development. It's a real dream for young artists in this kind of environment, very competitive and very fluid environment. So great. I'm so grateful, and I'm so it's fantastic that you're doing this important work for the organ world. I know it's not easy to get those kinds of financial supports. Can you tell a little bit behind the scenes, Thomas? How challenging is it to get the donors to donate that kind of money?
Well, it's just a constant effort. That's what you need. Where we have very little public funding from the Canadian government, only 8% of our budget, which means every year I have to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in private donations in order to run the program that we have. I mean, we're lucky to have a strong board of directors with lots of contacts and lots of generous friends and acquaintances who help us every year loyally. But it's important for us and important for those donors that we have a connection with the public too, and that we have people coming. And so that's an important aspect to our success. Not, you might not think that somebody paying $20 to come to a concert makes a big difference, but when many people do, and just to see people there, it allows us to prove to the donors that it's worth doing, and that the box office sales are important, and it's important to make a bit of money on the box office. But for me, it's more of a litmus test or a confirmation that we're engaging with people, and that we're convincing them to come out. Because in a way, the people, it's harder. Sometimes it's harder to convince people to come to something than it is to convince them to give money. Time is precious. You can't buy more time. So if some people may decide that, well, I'm not going to go, but I'll give you a donation. But ideally, we want both. We want people to support us financially, but also come out and see the efforts.
Do you have organists among those donors?
We have a few, yes. Yeah, I mean, we've got some organists who support us, not organists are not necessarily wealthy. So some organists who may not be able to afford to give us a lot of donations, they contribute in other ways. They volunteer with us. They make sure that we can use their church as a practice instrument during the competition. There are many ways to support.
Exactly.
Even if you can't write a big check, you can still make a big difference.
even this show, Secrets of Organ Playing, people will be listening to us from 89 countries, and perhaps some of them might choose to travel to Montreal, and do you have some travelers from across the globe just for the competition and the festival?
Yeah, we've had people. We do have people, and for our festival that we're hosting this July, we already have people who have registered from South Africa, from Australia, from Germany, from Hong Kong. So we do attract people from around the globe.
Don't you think that it's a community? It's like a small movement, right? Like-minded people who love not only organ music, they are connected by the common purpose, right? And common purpose involves this locality of Montreal, right? And the people who come to compete repeatedly, right? They are part of that movement, and I think it grows into something bigger than it appears, right, at first. Its influence is spreading the word about that in years. Let's say at the beginning, I think the word about this competition and the festival wasn't that great and far spreading than it is today. Today is one of the premier events in the organ world. Every magazine will write about it, and every reviewer will want to comment, and it's prestige just to be there, to be a part of that journey. So I'm so grateful that you're doing this job and making the dream come true possible, Thomas.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time and generosity today. People around the world now are eager to know more about you and your competition and festival. So could you direct them to a place online they could visit and get in touch with you?
Yeah, they should go to www.ciocm.org, which is CIOC is the Canadian International Organ Competition Montreal, CIOCM.org.
Excellent. I'll make sure I'll put that link into the description of our conversation so that people can literally click on the link and get into your website.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Thomas, for your time, generosity one more time, and have a tremendous success with the festival this year and the competition. And I hope to keep in touch with you. And if you have something new, please tell me. I will be more than delighted to help spread the word for you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog, Secrets of Organ Playing, at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice, and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Pinkevičius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.